Hi, I'm Pat Middleton. Join me every Saturday at 1:30 p.m. for Behind the Rhyme. That's every Saturday at 1:30 p.m. for Behind the Rhyme with Pat Middleton, right here at WTMR 800 AM, live streaming at WTMRradio.com. Good afternoon and welcome to Behind the Rhyme. I am Pat Middleton, back live with you on this Saturday, and we're going to go behind the rhyme today with Brenda Bailey. She is here and ready to share not only her poetry, but her story behind the rhyme. Good afternoon, Brenda. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you today, Pat? I'm good. How are you today, Pat?
I'm hanging in there, Brenda, hanging in there, as they say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I want to thank you for inviting me to your show.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your yes. I met you along with some of our poetry and discussion group, and I'm glad to be able to showcase our poets, and I'm especially glad to be with you on today. Feeling well enough to be back on the air. Thank God for bringing me through. No more to be said about that. I just wanted to give him praise before we get into our interview. So, Brenda, why don't you take about 30 seconds or so, introduce yourself to our listening audience before we get into our interview questions.
Okay, then. As you said, I am a member of the Writers' Room at Drexel University. I'm a member of Center in the Park, and I'm also a member of another writing group. I try to write with different groups to get different perspectives. So I've been writing for several years. And some of my poetry has been published in other anthologies and other forms of literature and things like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So why don't we start there? I know that one in particular is the Drexel Writing Room. Every year they publish an anthology, and you're in more than one of those anthologies. Is that right?
Yes, that is. I'm in, as a matter of fact, going back trying to get some poems for guys that I'm in. They've been together this is their 11th year. And so they have 10 anthologies. The 11th is coming out in June. And I realized that I am in about 8 of those anthologies.
Well,
so I was like, wow, I didn't even realize I had been writing that long.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Congratulations for that.
Yeah.
That's an accomplishment. Yeah. Well, let's start right there. How long, if you could put a number on it, how long have you been writing poetry?
Well, you write on and off. You write on and off throughout your, your lifetime. Have your journals that you write in, and then you stop, and I go back. So I would say that I've been writing about 12 years.
12 years, okay, okay.
Seriously writing or, doing poetry for about 12 years.
And do you remember your first poem?
No, my first poem was, it was probably something about roses being red and flowers being blue, when I was younger.
Yeah.
But, I don't so much remember the poem as I remember the reaction of friends and stuff. So it had to be something that was a little, a little on edgy, saying something smart back to someone, as a teenager or as a young adult growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these young people think they have it down pat with the clapback. But us old heads, we know about the clapback and poems and songs from way back in the day.
That's right.
I remember my first poem, in fact, was a clapback poem. We didn't call it that back in the 70s, though. but it was bullied about something. So I
Right.
certainly can understand that. And you did share just a little bit just now about journal writing. So besides journaling and poetry, do you write anything else?
Yes, I have tried my hand at
Oh,
fiction,
oh,
fiction and
wow.
nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I was laughing when I was reading something that I thought was my science fiction. I said, "Well, I don't think Octavia Butler would, like look at it and be too worried about me, in her genre."
Great about you.
Yeah.
But that's funny.
Well,
Wow, that's deep. That is
I had,
certainly, wow, science fiction. Go ahead now.
yeah,
Okay.
I was obsessed for a while.
You were what for a while? I didn't
Mm.
hear that.
I had watching Star Trek.
Oh,
Then they called them
yes.
Trekkies. Yeah, I used to watch Star Trek all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I fancied myself I can do this. So I went ahead and fancied myself writing myself a science fiction story.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. I love that. I love that. Stop here. I'm going to pause and have you share your first poem. And don't forget to also share the story behind the rhyme. How did this poem come to be? You can do that either before or after you share the poem. That's up to you.
Okay. Well, this one is titled "Small Things." The color lavender in a field, birds chirping, cotton clouds in the sky, the smell of fresh cut grass, laughter, tears, scratchy beard kisses, death grip hugs, faith, and love. And I wrote that particular poem. We were writing about things that we remember, from our childhood and youth. And I was thinking of some of the things that my parents and I would do, like together. And one of the things we would do is parents and I would do, like together. And one of the things we would do is to have music. My mother's vision wasn't that great, so we didn't watch a lot of television, but we did listen to the radio all the time. And sometimes something would come on that was maybe my mother's favorite or mine or my dad's. And we would dance and hug each other, and my father would be call himself giving us kisses, and he would be scratching our faces with his beard. And I thought that his scratchy face beard. Or my mom would hug us so tight. I'd be like, "Mama, you're hugging me too tight." And she'd be like, "Yeah, this is the death grip hug, And, like those are the things that you miss, the small things that you miss, like when you get older and they're
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
That's beautiful. And it was kind of reminiscent of the song "These Are a Few of My Favorite Things."
Right.
And you pick them up from your past, from your life, real life things that you went through. That's beautiful. I love that tribute poem. Who is your favorite poet and why?
Um, I can't point to just one.
The why along with it.
In some ways, them sharing their life stories and other ways, with me. But I have to say Gwendolyn Brooks because I first read her when I was in college, and I just really loved this poem. And I just really loved this poem, the poems that they had in the back of our literature book that she had written. And I just liked the way that she wrote them. I liked her language. And I think that's one of the things I look for in poetry is the language or the words that the poet is using. So I Nikki Giovanni. I enjoy her language as well, but I love it when she says, like things like, my mistakes are even perfect, So,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
it just takes you to another level. Who else? Amir Baraka. I think I like him because I had to remember. I think I like him because I had to remember memorize one of his poems in college. And so I said, okay, then who is this? So I did a little background check, on him, and his name was Leroy Jones. He was out of
Mm-hmm.
New Jersey. So I said, well, that's a hometown guy. So, I like him, Angelou, and there's just so many poets that, are out there and sharing themselves. And even the poets that you just pick up something and you might read something, or somebody's on the street trying to sell you their poetry book. I always try to make sure, if I see someone selling a book or something like that, I always try to, get it. So I enjoy their poetry as well. So there's just so many people, so many poets that I enjoy reading.
Yeah, and they shape how we look at not only poetry and language but the world. I also know, other than poets, who are some of your favorite authors?
One of the authors that I always fall back to is Alice Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Her book, The Color Purple. If you can see my copy of it, you say, "Oh, this girl reads this," and I do read it. Read it. Sometimes when I'm in a lull, or like I just, like I said, I'm gonna go get The Color Purple and read it and get some inspiration from that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, some other authors that I like. Let me see. Hmm. Of course, as soon as you ask me that question, they are. But right now, I'm reading Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, and I'm reading Bell Hooks' All About Love. And I have really been enjoying them, and changing my perspective about a lot of different things. And sometimes they validate what you think,
Mm-hmm.
of their writings. So I enjoy them. Parable of the Sower, I like the way it's written, that it's written in journal style. I really like that. So, and I'm enjoying those too.
Okay. I think okay. I think it's time for us to pause for another poem and another journey behind the rhyme of one of your rhymes.
Okay. This particular poem was one of the first poems I had published, and it's in a second edition for the writing prompts for poets. And this one is called Couples Holding Hands. Couples holding hands, sometimes stopping for a kiss. Addicts whose nod is almost to the ground. Children running. Houses coming and going. Cars, some old, some new, some loud, some rocking. A&P, Long Acres, Ocean City, left, but not gone. There's signage. Grass turns to concrete. Rosa blooms, teddy reds, get your drink on. Couples holding hands, sometimes stopping for a kiss.
Oh, I like that. You're painting the picture of everything that they're walking past as they're holding hands. I like that very much. What inspired you to write that? Where'd that poem come from? Where'd that poem come from?
I'm trying to think of what was I doing? I think I was on the avenue where I grew up. In most communities there was an avenue. Germantown Avenue, Lancaster Avenue, Stanton Avenue. There was some kind of an avenue where people in that particular community shopping, buy clothes. There were, different things going on.
Mm-hmm.
They had fresh fruit stands and things like that. And I was looking around and I didn't see those things anymore, but I did see the signage from some of the companies that had been there. But now, the building has been turned into something else. Now, the building has been turned into something else. So I think that's where it came from. I was kind of reminiscing about, my old neighborhood.
Okay, okay. Well, well, let's jump back into these questions. It is often said that our poems are blessings to others, but I want to know, has poetry been a blessing to you?
Um, I'm going to say that it's a blessing to me because I feel as though, like this is one of the gifts that God has given me. And and I get inspiration. And and I get inspiration from creation, from, the just all the things that are created for us to enjoy. The sky, the birds chirping, bodies of water, And I'm always grateful for the words that come to me. Sometimes the words I have just don't seem to be the right ones. So, like I feel as though, that God is, I'm just grateful that God gave me this gift, you know? Yeah.
What advice would you give to new and aspiring poets? What advice would you give to new and aspiring poets and even seasoned poets? What advice would you give us?
Have a good ballpoint pen and plenty of little journals all around the house so that when you don't have to go looking, you have it right there and you can go ahead and write your inspiration because you never know where it's going to hit.
I agree 100%. What are your thoughts, Brenda, on, I don't want to say modern technology, but on the choice that or the laptop or even the recorder on the phone versus that practical pen and paper process?
I'm from the old school. I like pen and paper, but like most people do, most people do usually have their phones with them. So if inspiration strikes, just record it. That's always a great thing. I like to write mine down and then I go back and I type them up. That's just my old school style. That's all. That's how I've always, like I've done my poetry. I've always written it down and then, going back to key it up or however I'm going to present it.
I agree. As much, I mean, back in the day, some of us were very proficient, let's say, in typing. But I don't remember a season or a time when a poem came to me and I opened up the typewriter instead of the notebook. It's just,
Right.
it's innately in us to use our hands and paper. Even on my phone, I have the poem, a verse. I open the notes app and I type it out because I still want that process of typing or writing it out versus, verbally recording it. But that is a good step for those who want to do that.
Right. Sometimes when I'm in different venues or in conferences and stuff, and somebody will say something or like ask the people to write something. I watch the students or the kids, the younger generation. I watch them whip out their phones and they're on their keying, like just madly, just keying it up. And I'm like, wow. I just have me a little notepad in my purse and my ink pen, and I just go ahead and write it out for myself. But yeah, I admire them, and their and the use of technology, the way they use it. I was in a meeting the other day, and somebody pulled out a poetry camera. And you point it to whatever it is that you wanted to write a poem about, and it will create you a poem. So that's through AI. So, like I said, so we want to be getting things through, AI. We want to be getting things, like on your technology, but I still carry a piece of paper and a pen in my bag.
Yes, I am glad, Brenda, that this is not a podcast because the face I just made, not about what you said, but the mention of AI just sends me. I just can't. But anyway, it's up to us to take advantage of technology in the ways most beneficial to us individually. How we want to perfect our gift. Because I'm always looking for ways that I can perfect my gift. AI is interesting. AI is interesting. So an app that has a wow.
No, it's not an app. It's actually a camera.
It's actually
And
a camera. Oh
yes,
wow.
and you point it to whatever it is that you want. You can point it at yourself. You can point whatever it is that you want. You can point it at yourself. You can point it at a picture, and it will create a poem for you.
Oh my goodness. Uh that's remarkable to me. My brother called me once recently and said, "There's a website you can go to and you can put." This is beyond that.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, so I think it's time for our last poem before we finish up our last group of interview questions.
Okay. This is the place I go to. Yes, maybe. This is the place I go to touch the gift I keep hearing about. What is it? Laughter? Service? Written words? Spoken words? Words of comfort? This is the place I go to. I'm learning to ignore people telling me what I should be doing. People telling me what I should be doing. This, that, or the other. How do you know what I should be doing? Do you know what you should be doing? When I was a vegetarian and you ate, drank, and smoked, did I tell you what to do? To change your eating habits, drinking habits, smoking habits? This is the place I go to scream, holler, curse, overeat, or starve myself. This is the place I go to for me, to be selfish, petty, and small. This is the place I go to thank you for delivering me. You took me out of darkness and brought me into the light. Light. Could not see in the darkness. I was walking into walls. This is the place I go to praise you, opening my eyes to see what I did not want to see. Living in a nocturnal animal, living as a nocturnal animal, coming out in the darkness to hunt. This is the place I go to for my closet from my place. This is the place I go to for advice, a shoulder to cry on, a listening shoulder. I want you to tell me what I need and what to do. This is the place I kneel down and pray for forgiveness. This is the place I go to share my secrets. I know you share my secrets. I know you will not betray me, nor will you use them against me. This is the place I go to. I know you are there waiting. You are there without judgment. You are there with love. This is the place I go to daily. This is the place I remember you came for me, brought me the place I go to and look for myself in the light. It is all right to be me. I thank you for who you made me. This is the place I go to say, Father, I praise you. Jesus, I love you. Holy Spirit, I adore you. Amen. So that was my poem of gratefulness for the gift that I've been giving of poetry. And yeah, that was one of my that's an anthology three. That was one of the first.
That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes, so
Thank you.
beautiful. I love that. And I love that sometimes I'll use the word we generally over spiritualize everything, but you didn't do that in this poem. You made it human, you made it plain. You didn't do that in this poem. You made it human, you made it plain, you made it relatable. Prayer, when we go to our knees, it's not perfect. It's just where we go to a perfect God in our imperfection. And I love that the poem wasn't over spiritualized. It was just real and beautiful and totally relatable. I loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, our last few questions. Let us knock them out of the ballpark, as they say. What do you think are the most important elements of good writing?
With good writing, I think there has to be some of you in there. You have to share some of yourself. Yeah, no one's perfect, but sharing some of yourself in your writing, it just makes your writing that much more relatable.
I agree. I also want to ask you, are you working on any current literary projects?
Well, I just wrapped up one. I sent one of my stories, see what they say.
Wonderful.
And
Congratulations on that.
I don't know what they're going to say, but I
No,
stood
you
it
did
through.
it. You wrote it, you finished it,
Yes,
you sent it. That's congratulatory.
thank you. I appreciate that. And that's about it. That's about it. Anthology 11 is on its way out. So I have a few pieces in Anthology 11.
And that's with the
And,
writers, Drexel's Writers Room anthology, right?
hmm
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I have some pieces coming out in that. And it's, I think there's more poetry than I had before. Because like I said, I basically try my hand at story. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay, our final question, Brenda, before we go. It's a two-part question. Do you ever suffer from writer's block? And if so, how do you handle it? How do you handle it?
um, writer's block. I didn't call it writer's block. I don't know. Sometimes when I just seems like my mind is dry and I don't have any words or anything, my way of dealing with it is going down too. Sometimes I go to Kelly Drive, or sometimes I'll just walk in, when I leave home, or walk down a different street. But I really enjoy going to Kelly Drive. I like bodies of water, and I just like to stand there and watch the water going, just watch the water rippling through. It amazes me that, it's always moving. And sometimes you look out on the water and it seems like there's diamonds on the water, or you see different birds and animals and things in the water. And I just walk down, Kelly's Drive, watch the people biking, running, and, get inspiration from that, because that gives me hope that, like, all is not bad. There's a lot of good, looking at the trees, the different trees, the different monuments and things that they have out there. And that just gives me hope. And that seems to kind of stir up the juices in my mind to, stir up the juices in my mind to, start getting some ideas on some things to write about.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much. That's so practical but creative. It's like a spark
Mm-hmm.
to get your creative moving again. Love how every poet has a different remedy for writer's block, and I love how you see. I don't really call it that. I just call it a season. I'm a little dry. My pen is a little dry, but going near the water to be rejuvenated. This
Yeah.
has been such a great interview, Brenda. I want to thank you again for being with us on today. I want to thank you for your yes and for your poetry and for being so open and sharing with us on this afternoon. We really appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us.
And,
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us.
and Pat, I want to thank you for, letting me take this time, for you taking this time to interview with me, because I never thought my poetry would take me here. So thank you so very much.
That was one of the questions that I didn't ask you. Where has your poetry taken you? It's taken you to the airways of
Yes.
WTMR and beyond and beyond. So thanks once again. Stand by just one moment. You've been listening to Behind the Rhyme with Pat Middleton. Today we poetry, and more importantly, we heard her story behind the rhyme. Tune in next Saturday as we continue this journey of local poets and poets from beyond who will be here with us to share their stories, their testimonies, and their poetry behind the rhyme.